Bum, 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 bum. The Peter Shit Show. Bum, 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 bum. All right, I recorded a series of videos these last couple of days about how we could have a long weekend every week. But that's more of a compromise solution. I have a different solution that I think ultimately would do a whole lot better. And by the way, a lot of these solutions I came up with as a kid. Actually, it was so obvious to me. Like in my last video, I suggested how you don't have to give up a workday out of the week to have a 3 day weekend. Right? All you have to do is take a 3 day weekend and work 5 days still. Right? Well, assuming that you can get a large mass to jump on board. Right? It might be helpful if you got a religious denomination to jump on board, right? Because so many people would instantly be on board, and so it would spread, right? That's probably the best way to go about it, right? Now that we have a new pope, maybe that idea. I'm gonna have to write to the new pope to suggest that, right? It's probably best if a whole religious group jumps on board. But I have an even better solution. That 8 day week solution actually was kind of a compromise. I have an even better solution. Now, this one is probably best to understand by example as well. So, I think I was 13 years old at this point. I was taking the SAT exam, and it dawned on me that my study habits were not always in sync with the rest of the class, right? I was studying for the SAT. I also competed in the math counts competition. And I found myself on a different rhythm than a lot of my peers, right? Sometimes on a Saturday night, all of a sudden I get all this motivation to study. And then on a Tuesday when I would see my peers, the energy just wasn't there. And unfortunately, the schedules and my personal energy didn't always align, right? Thanksgiving would come, and oh my God, that was my best study energy I ever had, and then it got lost because Thanksgiving was here, or vice versa, right? And it dawned on me, why do we have to take off on certain days? We just had Memorial Day. Now, do I dislike the veterans in our country? Not at all. I think about them much more often than just every Memorial Day, right? But why do we need to pigeonhole when we celebrate our veterans, when we celebrate our religion, when we celebrate our uh, giving thanks? When do we celebrate whatever? Right? Why do we have to? Why do we have to pigeonhole that? Right? All of these things should be regularly thought about and appreciated, right? And so I have a proposal. So we have how many weekends do we have every year? We got 52 times 2 days in the weekend, right? Or three if you were going to go with my system. 104 days plus all the holidays and the vacation days. Let's call it 30 more days. So my proposal is that instead of having weekends, holidays, and vacations, we can lump them all together. In a given year, you would have 134 days that you can take off whenever you want, right? If you work best by working 200 some days in a row and then taking 130, go for it, right? If that's how you produce your best output, if you work best, in the middle of the night, go for it, right? If you work best with polyphasic sleeping and working in 3, 4 different segments, go for it, right? Now, the problem is that how would we run our scheduling? Well, here's the thing. This is a Starbucks that I'm at, right? We don't schedule our customers, right? They come in and out whenever within the confines of the opening times of the Starbucks, right? So why doesn't it work on the other side of the counter as well, right? If employees, you could have a contract that says you work 20 hours, 30 hours, 40 hours in the week, and you could show up whenever you want, right? And statistically, it could work, right? Especially for a large chain like Starbucks, they got lots of stores, right? When you're ready to head out the door, you open up your app. Okay, this store needs workers at this point, right? Why not? And so that's a lot of gig work kind of works like that anyhow, right? And but people would be way more productive when they worked when their energy was heightened. right? When it made most sense for them to work. I think part of the problem with some of these ideas I have is that they make too much sense. And so, it's so simple when you think about it. People work best when they know they work best, right? And one thing isn't always at the expense of another. Right? Taking an extra weekend day doesn't have to steal from the rest of the week. It's so easy to understand, right? And we overthink a lot of these things. We really do. We really do. Now, what would I do if we had flexible weekends, right? Well, I think for one thing, as you guys know, I've been back in the dating scene. I I think we as a whole, in the whole society, we'd have much better connections with others, right? How many times have you tried to find time for a date and couldn't, right? If our weekends were floating like that, so that would be less of a problem, right? And a corollary of that is better relationships, lower divorce rates, right? Which means that you'll have better, even more time to enjoy your floating vacation days, right? And so you could, when you're having how many times have you left work on a Friday thinking, God, but that train is still going, and right? You don't have to lose that anymore. You don't have to give up. See, if you leave work on a Friday and that train is still going, you're kind of stuck with an awful choice. Right? You can let it continue to go and sacrifice your weekend. You could take the weekend and sacrifice that train, right? I can't tell you how many times I used to work at a technology startup. How many times I had to make choices like that, right? With floating weekends, that would be a thing of the past, right? This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum, 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 bum.